Do you get tired of eating vegetables?
No, I really don't. People think that I'm crazy. I love vegetables. Like even when we go, like if we're on vacation and, restaurants have been limited with what I can actually order. There's been times when I'm like, okay, all I can order is French fries. I guess that's what I'm going with. It's just like I crave them. If I have to go a long period of time where I can't eat the amount of vegetables that I typically eat, I really crave them. I love them.
The fitness movement is brought to you by Zor Fitness. We offer coaching and individualized program design, as well as educational content for coaches and athletes. It's all at one place, zorfitness.com. So Stacey, how's it going?
Are you going to crunch in my ear right now?
ASMR right there. So, how are things going at the gym?
They're great. Things are going great. Fantastic.
I feel like I can't hear anything because you know how when you're eating something with like headphones on, it magnifies the sound?
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting right now.
I love the sound of you chewing in my ear.
So, these are vegan. So, yeah. How's life right now?
Life is good. Busy, but busy in a good way. Mm-hmm. Can't complain.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, Chris Hardenberg said this. He's like, in the gym industry, you're either broke or busy. So better off being busy.
Yeah, for sure. You forget about the broke part.
Yeah. Cool. So, I'm gonna grill you today.
Okay. Bring it on. I'm ready.
With questions, that is.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're a vegan.
I'm vegan.
I feel like we should have some disclaimers before we go into this. Like, we're friends. And that I respect you, and that you're a nice person.
Well,
these are important things for people to know.
Right. What are you going to bully me right now?
All right, now I'm going to slam you with these questions. But I think it is an important thing for people to know that we are friends. We do get along. We see eye to eye on things, generally, and that's just a good background.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess we'll get into why people are here. All right, why are you vegan?
Why am I vegan? So I'm vegan for mainly health purposes. You can go down two different roads with it: ethical versus health. I think the longer that I've been vegan, I do feel like we don't need to harm the animals to survive. Mm-hmm. That kind of came after, but I became vegan just for the health benefits.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been vegan?
Since October 2019. So
basically 4 years.
Well, going into my fourth, right? Yeah. Going into my fourth.
Why don't we define what vegan is for people listening? I think a good chunk of people will know, but just in case someone doesn't know.
You'd be surprised how many people don't understand it.
Yeah.
Vegan is nothing that comes from an animal. So no eggs, no dairy, even right down to honey because of the bees.
Nope, it's an animal.
No animal products.
Cool. So have you had any animal products in the last
Accidentally, I have. Not on purpose.
That's actually one of my questions I got on here.
Yeah, and it happens, right? Like anybody that tries this way of eating, you eat something and you look at the label and it's like, oh, I didn't realize there was milk powder in this.
Does that bother you?
It does a little bit, I'm like, man, my streak is over. I'm back to day one.
Everything I've done at this point is wasted.
Yeah, I actually went to a restaurant one time and half of the table ordered this amazing chicken liver dish that this restaurant's famous for, and half the table ordered sautéed mushrooms for
Oh,
appetizers. It was very dark. It was very dark in my defense. And they put, the plate sort of down the middle of the table. And I was the first one to take a bite of the appetizer. And immediately it was like,
You're like, really? That's what I broke the streak for, was chicken liver?
This is not mushrooms, it's chicken livers. Yeah, chicken liver. So it happens. It's just, just move on.
Yeah. Yeah, which we've talked about this, like you're sort of like a rule follower, where if you're saying you're going to go vegan, then it's like not 1 foot in, 1 foot out sort of thing. Like
Right.
you want to do it right.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good quality to have as a human being.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it, you might as well, you got to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, personally, that kind of drives me nuts when someone's like, they're saying they're doing something, but then it's like, you see that like, oh, like, yeah, but you're not on the weekends. It's like, oh, I go keto, but then I eat a bunch of carbs every 4 days. And it's like,
Right. Back to it on Monday.
You're not keto.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. I hear that a lot. Well, yeah, I'm vegan, but sometimes I eat an egg. So you're not vegan.
Yeah, exactly. So is everybody in your family vegan?
No, actually, my husband is not, but he enjoys everything that I eat. So if I were to cook, 5 nights a week and it was all vegan, he would eat it for sure. But occasionally he wants a steak. My son and my oldest daughter are not vegan, but my youngest daughter has actually taken to it, and she's been vegan with me for probably the better part of a year. And that was sort of her own decision. I didn't push that on her at all. And she does really great. It's impressive to see her read labels and say, oh, I can't have this or I can't, because she understands all of it. So,
Does it bother you at all, like grilling up a steak?
sometimes it does. Yeah. It does.
Like a real raw, rare,
Right.
yeah, raw.
Yeah. Like right down to the smell. Like it starts to get to me now. Yeah.
Do you recommend a vegan diet to your clientele? You do nutrition coaching for a lot of people. Do you recommend that?
So, if they have specific reasons to go plant-based vegan, then I do, but I don't push it on anybody. And I've actually had people come to me and say, I want some nutrition coaching, but I don't want to be vegan.
You're like, well, actually,
Yeah.
that's all I do.
Yeah.
So
I don't like tofu. That's fine. That's fine. But I'm not going to suggest tofu if you don't like tofu.
do you feel like vegan is the healthiest way to eat?
Absolutely.
Okay. Then why don't you recommend it to everybody then?
It's
See what I did there?
Yeah. No, and that's a fair question. You have to, so people that come to me are looking for a change because what they're doing currently is not working at all for them. So I think a change into a vegan plant-based diet for some people would just be so tough that there would be some pushback, there'd be some frustration, and, they would feel like they're restricting things that they love. And with restriction comes pushback, and you want to, go the other way. So I think it would just be really hard for someone that needs to make an initial change to make that big of a change.
Yeah. That's like, someone who comes to you and they have like 6 Diet Cokes a day. And you're like,
Right. So let's
hey,
just,
you can only drink water now. It's like, even if that would be the most healthy thing for them, it's like,
yeah.
well, it's not going to be the most healthy thing for them because they're going to fall off the bandwagon in about 3 days.
Right.
So it's like, hey, let's just cut this back a little bit and try to replace it a little bit more with water.
Yeah.
And then eventually you can sort of work your way into things that are a little bit higher order.
I do definitely, I try to talk people into as many whole foods from the earth as they can. So they definitely get that influence from me as far as veggies and unprocessed, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. So you'd kind of touched on this, but there's sort of like 3 branches of reasons why people would be vegan, like the health, the environmental reasons, and like the ethical reasons. You said you mainly got into it for health reasons. Was there any like big things that stuck out to you as to why that was the case? Like, what were the health benefits? What are they?
So for me, I actually became vegan. My sister suggested it. Her and I were CrossFitting together at the time, doing a lot of trail running. And she's like, I watched this movie, The Game Changers, and it was on Netflix and everybody was watching it and it kind of blew up. She's like, you should really watch it because I think you might think that some of the benefits are cool. And it, there was just a lot of research to people recovering better, better sleep, less inflammation. So it was really, the whole movie, if you've not seen it, it's based around tons of athletes that went to the diet just for better performance, longevity, better circulation. It just kind of seemed like a no-brainer for me. I was already eating, I already loved vegetables, so lots of whole foods, lots of veggies. So for me, the switch wasn't huge. I just had to get rid of the animals. I had to replace chicken. I had to replace eggs. It wasn't really that tough for me.
It's interesting because I'm sure if we went digging in PubMed or something, we could find scholarly articles on both sides of that where like there, and you probably know them just as much as anybody else does, like there's vegans who aren't healthy. And in 2023, it's a whole lot easier to be vegan and not healthy than it was in, 1980 or something, right? Which is a whole different discussion. But I feel like there's no neutral parties in the debate. Like everybody's got a horse somehow who's like talking about it. So it's like, I feel like a lot of the research can either be, used as ammo on one side, or it's like just kind of biased because the people who are actually doing the research aren't like they have a bias. Like there's a reason they're doing it.
For sure. There's very few articles out there that I've read. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but there's very few that sort of say, well, on one hand, and then on the other hand, it's definitely all one-sided to one or the other.
Mm-hmm. And likely most people who are listening to this are also one-sided. They either saw vegan in the title and they like clicked on it because they want to hear someone get grilled, or they clicked on it because they want to hear a vegan commercial and like someone patting their own back.
Right. So
that's the tough thing about this whole conversation, I think, is that there's very, very few people who are like, oh yeah, like certainly vegan can be very healthy and, and I'm just happy not to be vegan.
Yeah, and it's come so far, even just since I've been vegan the last 3 to 4 years, just as far as the options that you have and people understanding it and doctors recommending it, for people that have high blood pressure and high cholesterol, it's way more accepted than it used to be. And I think that people are doing it better. I don't think you see as many unhealthy looking vegans anymore as you used to. It's funny, I actually had one of the 530 class members said to me, he's like, he saw that we were doing this. He's like, dude, you're vegan? And I said, yeah. He's like, I totally thought that you left here and like went home and ate a 16-ounce T-bone steak every day. I said, well, no.
Not exactly.
Definitely not. But he's like, just all the vegans that I know are they look so unhealthy. They look malnourished. And I think that people are learning better now how to not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, yeah, of course, like some of the vegans I can think of are either like obese or like look frail and like anemic.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's the case, but also like I see so many people who eat like a typical Western diet who are just like, dude, you look like you're ready to pop because your blood pressure is so high you can like see it on your face.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's tough, and like I said, it's both sides of it.
For sure. Yeah.
So, actually, there's one point that I want to bring up. Andrew Huberman on his podcast talked about how there was this study where they had like a group of housekeepers, and they told the one that it was like, hey, it's like super healthy for you to be at this job because you're really active and you're on your feet a lot and you're moving around all the time. And they like really emphasized like all the health benefits to what they were doing. And then other group, they just like were basically like, hey, here's your job, like do your job sort of thing. And like everybody who they told like, hey, this is really good for your health, like all their metrics improved in their health. Like their blood pressure, their like resting heart rate, like all the stuff that they measured in the study basically improved like significantly more than the group that they were just like, this is your job, just sort of do it.
So they believed that they were, so they did?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So I think like for whatever health reasons people have for whatever diet, I feel like if you really believe in it, it can also have an impact.
I think that's true. I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, again, you have to, you can't just become vegan and believe that you're going to live longer if you're still eating unhealthy vegan food. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I totally agree with you. Like if that's your excuse to just like eat whatever you want,
right?
And then say, hey, if I convince myself that it's healthy, it'll be healthy. It's like,
right.
That's not how it works.
Right. I mean, a vegan donut is still a donut. You know,
Yeah.
I make vegan donuts and people love them, but you know, you're still eating a donut. It's just, there are some pros to it, but you know, vegan ice cream is still vegan ice cream. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. And it like, I just think that's like one more important piece for that people can recognize is like, hey, if you truly believe that you're doing something for your health and you are like say for you, like you made the decision for your health, like that was why you did it, and you're like bought into it, like chances are you're also going to make other decisions outside of that will impact your health. Like, hey, I'm already making the decision to be vegan for my health. Like that was your thought process.
Sure.
Then it's easier to say, you know, I'm also going to take care of myself and like go out for walks or to drink water and like do other stuff that also like is included in your health.
Sure. Yeah.
It's kind of a snowball effect.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. The ethics part of it, I feel like is fairly straightforward. Like a lot of people are like, I don't feel like there's a need to kill animals.
Right.
And then usually people's counter is like, oh, it's part of the life cycle.
Yeah, circle of life.
Yeah, circle of life.
Yep, I hear it from my husband all the time.
Yeah.
Circle of life.
And again, I would say I could probably see both sides of that. Like you can live and not like clearly people are doing it, you're doing it, right?
Right.
You don't have to do it.
You can survive and not eat animals.
Yeah. But there's also a lot of people who are just very okay with the fact that like, yeah, you know, I do eat animals and they have to die in order for me to eat them. And that's just part of the deal.
And it's just like the thrill of the hunt. It's a whole thing. It's a whole, I mean,
Yeah. I would also say though, like there's, for example, if someone is worried about, you know, the ethics behind something, there's like a lot of different gray areas in between, just like either I don't eat animals at all, or I'm like a meat eater. Like even if you look at like a chicken egg, it's like, okay, pasture raised, cage free, like organic, non-GMO. Like there's like all these different things and they all mean legally something different. And the animal's life that is like affected by that is impacted as well.
Yeah.
And like each of those is different. So if you're having like grass-fed, you know, pasture raised local farmer who like go over and like you can see the guy and he's like out there with his animals, right? Like a commercial that you'd see on TV that is like nothing like what actually happens.
Right.
That's a very different like life experience for that animal than if like even if it's still killed versus, you know, I lived in this 4x6 cage my entire life and then was slaughtered after I was like force fed for 6 weeks.
Right. But you know, and so when you say that, you don't necessarily know that what you're eating was cage free. You don't always know where they were at or, you know, what process they went through, you know, whether or not it was free range or was it in a cage its whole life? Like, do you really know? Unless you really know, if you're a hunter and you went out and shot it and killed it and did the whole thing, then you know where your food's coming from. But you don't always know 100%.
Yeah, you don't. Unless you're someone who is really diligent about it and you do either work with like an individual who's like farm raising the animals or like you don't live in like a huge city where you can actually go to a farm and like figure out, oh yeah, this is where these animals are actually being raised. Like you could buy eggs from like my neighbors have chickens. Like most people, chances are most people listening to this, your neighbors don't have chickens, but mine do. And it's like, I'll go over there sometimes. And like when they're away, we'll watch them. Sounds like it's a dog or something. Feed them and give them
and you
water.
get free eggs.
Yeah. But they're like, then get some eggs. Yeah. And it's like, not only can you tell the quality of the actual food that you're eating is different, but it's also like the life of the animal is very different as well.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, since I did make the major change for health reasons, if you know where your food is coming from, that's excellent. If you can say that, but like I said, not everybody can. So,
And I would say, like, if you are eating cheap, low quality food, like, especially if it's meat or a dairy product, like, it's just a bad impact on your health, frankly.
Mm-hmm. It's disgusting.
Yeah. And like, there's a lot of just like store bought meat that you can literally tell that like the meat is not from a healthy animal.
Yeah.
Like you're like, hey, this animal, like I can see it in the package. Like this animal's not well when it was slaughtered.
Yeah.
And here it is. So, yeah, I mean, obviously you're avoiding a lot of that. What are your thoughts on like the environmental impact?
So there's a lot of argument, especially because we eat a lot of soy, tofu, a lot of soy-based meats. There's a lot of research, and like I said, I've kind of only just gotten into some of it, but there's a lot of research and numbers to, a lot of the soy that is produced is mainly to feed animals. So that they can be slaughtered for you to eat.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just another step up.
It's a very, like, the percentage of soy that we are responsible for is very small in comparison to what's being fed to animals. So, a lot of people are like, oh, the vegans, it's their fault over farmed soy, but it's not necessarily all our fault.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. I was doing a little bit of research, and actually, so I was like, I forget what exactly I was searching, but it was something like, vegan and looking into like impact on the environment. One of like the related searches was negative effects of veganism on the environment, which is just like a really good example of like, man, people are literally finding like ammo for like whatever they can.
We're terrible.
Like, how can I convince like, yeah, it's like, ugh. But yeah, I mean, so one of the things to think about in terms of our environmental impact is like pesticides and like herbicides. Mm-hmm. And again, like a lot of that, like you said, will be fed to the animals. But also like in terms of like if we're going back to like the health impact, it's potential that even if you're eating vegetables that you're getting some of those pesticides and herbicides. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you've heard of this. They're called like the Dirty Dozen, which is basically like fruits and veggies. So they're like the ones that have probably the most herbicides and pesticides on them that people are eating. Strawberries, spinach, kale, collard greens, nectarines, apples, grapes, bell peppers, cherries, peaches, pears, celery, tomatoes. Is that kind of thing something you think about at all?
Honestly, I don't often, and maybe I probably should.
Just wash your fruit and vegetables.
Wash my fruit and vegetables, and sometimes I am in such a hurry for myself that I don't, and I get called out at home. You really need to wash those, and I should, but I don't probably pay as much attention as I should to that stuff. Yeah,
and like pesticides and the fertilizers and all that stuff is like one branch of this tree, but it's also like people talk about like methane and all of the impact of like cattle just from like being on the actual like ground and like eating the vegetation if they're in like bodies of water and they're not properly like basically creating like a buffer between them and like a body of water or like a stream or something, like all that stuff impacts. So it's also like a matter of getting better exposure to farmers to make sure that they can make a good living and still create enough crops for themselves. Do you miss eating meat?
No, the only thing that I do occasionally miss is eggs. Because I really loved eggs. Dippy eggs in particular. But meat, no, I don't miss it at all.
Would you ever consider being vegan plus eating eggs?
No.
You don't miss them that bad?
I don't miss them that bad.
So you enjoy the vegan label more than you enjoy eating eggs?
I don't think it's the label. I think for me, it's committing to being vegan. I don't.
Do you feel like if you ate an egg once in a while that you would like slip back into like you find yourself like eating steak at breakfast or something?
Maybe, I don't know. And it might be like, does the alcoholic have an occasional drink? It's probably not a good idea because they'll slip back into their old habits. And I guess for me, I just feel better, and I don't want to poison the water. It's all or nothing. All or nothing.
That's fitting for you. Do you eat like a lot of like fake food? Like vegan sausage patties, like bean burgers with like a lot of other stuff thrown in, Impossible, everything.
I try to limit it as much as I can. I don't buy that stuff on a regular basis. But if you're eating out at a restaurant and all they have is an Impossible burger, then I order it. I don't feel like it's. I could be making way worse choices than fake meats. But like I said, I try to limit them. I don't eat them often.
Do you get tired of eating vegetables?
No, I really don't. People think that I'm crazy. I love vegetables. Like even when we go, like if we're on vacation and, restaurants have been limited with what I can actually order. There's been times when I'm like, okay, all I can order is French fries. I guess that's what I'm going with.
They do it in like, I'm trying to think of like an animal-based oil or something.
It's just like I crave them. If I have to go a long period of time where I can't eat the amount of vegetables that I typically eat, I really crave them. I love them. Mm-hmm.
Is that just because you have developed more of a taste for it, or do you think you are creative in the ways that you prepare them that you can, they just taste better?
I think both. I think that I've just been eating them for so long that I miss them when I don't have them, and I do love to cook, so that helps a lot. Being creative and making things fun and different spices and different methods.
Yeah, there's also research that shows that like the more you eat something, basically like the more your palate will start to shift that way. Mm-hmm. Where like, for example, if I like went carnivore tomorrow and just like stuck with that for the next 5 years, we'd be great friends. But also like I would start to like crave meat more often.
Yeah.
And like vice versa, if you're someone who like never eats vegetables, it seems like you would crave vegetables all the time. Mm. But actually it kind of works the opposite way, where the more you eat that, you'll become more kind of wired that direction, so to speak. It's kind of interesting. So that makes sense. But also you, like you said, you prepare them well in a lot of different ways, and you like to cook, and so all that stuff adds up. How do you hit your protein goal?
That's my favorite question.
I feel like that's the one you get a lot.
That's definitely one of the most common ones. How do you get enough protein? There's no way you can eat enough protein in a day. Well, I definitely do. You don't realize how much protein are in vegetables. You can get protein from broccoli, spinach, peas, but a lot of beans, tofu, obviously. Tofu, tempeh, seitan, those are probably three of the most common.
Satan?
It's seitan. Seitan. It's not Satan. So I see what you're doing here. Trying to make it sound bad. Seitan. Those are probably three of my big ones. And textured vegetable protein, it's like a dehydrated.
Is that what you use in the donuts?
No, I use a pea protein. Okay. Pea protein, yeah. But I have no trouble hitting my protein.
Yeah, I think that's something that people don't realize, is that especially if you were having like a not super dense carbohydrate, like for example, if it's like a starch, it's not going to have much protein in it. Right. And it's going to have like a lot of carbs in terms of like the density of that, like the volume. Like not a huge amount of food, but a lot of carbs. Whereas like a vegetable calorically is super sparse. Like you can eat a lot of volume and it's not a lot of calories, but then also it's got a decent ratio of carbs to protein, for generally speaking. Yeah. It differs on each one, but so in other words, you can eat a lot of food, you can have some carbs, but you'll get a decent amount of protein out of them.
Yeah. And I think that's why so many people have sort of turned to it for a weight loss diet. I don't suggest it for that, but because
you eat a lot.
You eat so much because of the vegetables.
Yep, I always say this, like, you could have a sleeve of Oreos or a bathtub full of spinach.
Yep.
Like, take your pick.
That's right.
And most people are like, Oreos.
Oreos, which are vegan, by the way, accidentally.
Yeah, but if you're trying to be someone who, like, fills yourself up, you can eat a lot of food. Yeah. Like, there's no better way to do that than vegetables.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, would you ever consider, maybe down the road, or have you considered either going, like, vegetarian or like pescatarian or something along those lines? Flexitarian.
Tom Brady is a flexitarian. No, I just don't. I feel like this has worked really well for me. And, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I really like it. I like how I feel. I like how I recover. I just feel like making a change doesn't really make sense for me. Mm-hmm.
Have you had anybody who, like, basically tried to get you to stop being vegan?
I wouldn't say try to get me to stop, but definitely, like, kind of like the questions that you've been asking me. Don't you just ever want a steak? Don't you just ever want some eggs?
Get a lot of those questions.
Yeah, like, just get the cheese pizza. You'll be fine. Like, more of trying to convince me to, like, bend a little bit and it'll be fine. But not really to just quit it altogether. People that know me know that if I'm in it, then I'm in it, and that's what I'm going to do. You're not going to change my mind. So,
on, like, the other side of things, are there people who, like, like, if they're, like, eating a steak, they, like, hide it from you because, like, you feel like they're going to, like, offend you by eating that?
No.
You haven't had that?
No. Nobody's afraid of offending me. Because they know I'm pretty open about it. You know, you do you, and I'm going to do me, and you know, I'm not gonna preach to you about why you shouldn't be eating steak 5 nights a week. If you don't preach to me about why I should.
You mentioned that one kind of situation with the restaurant earlier. Has that, like, happened, like, where they basically swapped it out and it was a little mix up and you ate some animal products? Has that happened quite a bit? Like, do you have a lot of issues eating out?
Eating out can be tough. There's typically not a lot of vegan options on menus, like, that just stand out as this is vegan.
Especially in a small town like ours.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there are a couple of restaurants downtown that are doing better, which is really awesome. You know, you can add tofu to things. But sometimes when I do eat out and I just don't have an option, it ends up being a salad, side of French fries, extra sides of vegetables, things like that. And sometimes, you know, being in a small town, they'll be really accommodating if I say, listen, I'm vegan. This is what I like. What can you throw together? And it comes out great. Or they just serve me a bowl of pasta. And I'm like, I don't even eat pasta.
You're like, could at least put some sauce on here.
Do you have any spinach? Like, I don't even eat pasta on a regular basis. So to me, that was kind of comical that, you know, the vegan's here, so let's give her pasta.
Yeah. But literally, so I'm lactose intolerant. So I've been at weddings before, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you have the you know, dairy-free meal," which I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm lactose intolerant, but whatever." And it'll, like, literally bring out, like, dry pasta. I'm like, what?
Where's
there wasn't
the
anything else you could figure out to put on this?
Olive oil, garlic, like,
yeah,
nothing.
Something. Come on, at least a little bit of salt or something.
Yeah,
it's like they literally threw it in the stove in the pot and then just brought it on out.
That was the best they could do.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like definitely people have gotten a little bit more exposure to, you know, veganism over the last several years, and generally the experience, if you go somewhere, is probably better than maybe several years ago.
For sure. Yeah.
Alrighty. Let's do some questions from the gram.
Okay.
Sam asked, do I really need to eat veggies?
Sam. Yes, Sam, you really need to eat veggies. So there's, I mean, micronutrients, you know, I think especially as an athlete, because I know Sam, as an athlete, we focus really hard on protein, carbs, and fats. And it's like, well, what else do I need? There's a lot of things in vegetables that you need. Micronutrients, you got to eat your greens. You need the veggies, fiber, all that stuff to function.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you are someone who's training a lot, you know, there's still lots of times where you can get nutrient-dense food. from like a micronutrient perspective. So like basically anytime you're done for the day for training, like it's a great time to just like pound a bunch of veggies. Like maybe kind of flip flop your meal. Like I'll actually do this a lot, which is actually kind of funny. Like most people, if they have a salad, they'll have it like right at the beginning of the meal. Like often when I go home, it's like post training, I'll flip it around where I'll like go straight to like either like meat and starches and then like have some dessert and then I'll go eat my salad or something.
Just to make you feel better.
Yeah. Just so I get the nutrients right away.
Balance.
And then I still need to have some micronutrients. So I'll throw in my veggies.
And also too, like, we talked about food volume. I know that Sam's not looking to lose weight whatsoever, but if you are somebody who needs to be in a caloric deficit, the more vegetables that you eat, the fuller you're going to feel. And it's going to really help you achieve that.
Yeah. I've actually recommended to people, like, please eat as many vegetables as you can stomach. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Good. That makes me happy.
Did you not think I'd say that? I mean, for anybody who's trying to lose weight, it's like, again, like it's basically free.
Absolutely.
Like, your celery's basically net negative calories.
Yeah.
Like
celery, cucumbers, tomatoes.
Pretty much all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if it's raw. Like it's really hard to eat that many raw vegetables. Like your jaw's going to get tired before you have reached your caloric
I do a lot of
allotment.
chewing. A lot of chewing.
Yeah. All right. From Val. If you want a quote unquote cheat day, how do you treat yourself as a vegan without upsetting balance?
Well, I don't really think this is a question just for vegans. I don't have a cheat day. I don't restrict anything, so I don't ever feel like I'm having a cheat day. If I want a slice of vegan pizza, I eat pizza. If I want a donut, I eat a donut. So as long as it's not going to throw off balance anywhere else, I just eat it. Now, if we're referring to cheating on being a vegan, I don't ever do that.
I would 100% agree. Like, if you need a cheat day or feel like you need a cheat day,
then you're restricting too much.
There's something that's out of balance that needs fixed. And if you're someone who's, spot on the entire week and then the weekend's like a roller coaster, again, you need to sort that out because it needs to get fixed.
For sure.
And maybe she's just referring to as just like, hey, like, how do I
treat myself? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, like with kind of whenever you want, provided that you're not just being a heathen and just eating like trash all the time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the wildest thing I've done recently is eat cake on my birthday for breakfast. Like, and it was like, whatever, because I know I'm going to eat 1,000 grams of vegetables today. So I don't really care about the slice of cake.
I love it. I've also eaten like salmon and salad for breakfast before and just been like, ugh.
That does not sound.
Yeah, that's not really treating yourself.
Sound lovely.
Treating yourself to a better performance.
Treating yourself terrible.
Also from Val, how does being a vegan compare to being a meat eater for building muscle?
So I wouldn't necessarily say that either one is better for building muscle. I think as long as you're doing it right, you can be successful. Meat eaters, obviously, bodybuilders, powerlifters, CrossFitters, they eat tons of meat, they have huge muscles, but that doesn't mean that a vegan can't build the same amount of muscle. It's just making sure that you're finding the proper balance and getting the right amount of protein for your goals.
There, I would say it probably goes back more to macronutrients.
Yeah.
Like, if you're getting the fuel in, you'll be able to do what you need it to, basically.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that I have more muscle mass now as a vegan than I did when I was a meat eater, but I don't think it's because I'm vegan.
I think that's just your programming.
Yeah, it's my coach.
Yeah, I did all that work for you.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with being vegan.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think potentially it's easier for a lot of people to meet a protein goal, especially if they're not super cognizant of what foods have a lot of protein, if they are not eating vegan. However, there's people like you who are very aware of what foods have the most protein.
Yeah.
They can manipulate that, still get, enough of the other stuff that they need, and they're fine. I would say more so it's like if you're someone who you're you're restricting, like, for example, if you're having a lot of protein, but you're also not having maybe like the carbs that you need, like you're probably also not going to put on a lot of muscle mass.
Right.
Like you need, just because of like I feel like I always use the same analogies, but like if you're at a construction site and like a bunch of wood shows up and like that's all you have, but you don't have any screws to like put it all together, you're going to be like, well, all right, we can't do anything.
Can't
like
build
you gotta
anything.
there's, and that's obviously not physiologically correct, but like that's a good idea to think about. Like I need to have a well-rounded base, and that's all the macronutrients. Mm-hmm. All right, one from Abby. Does Stacey feel better generally being vegan, or do other factors play a role?
Other factors play a role other than being vegan?
Like other lifestyle factors, I'm guessing, as to like how you're feeling healthy.
I think that overall as a whole, I think being vegan is the majority of the reason why I feel so good all the time. But I think that other areas of my recovery, as far as, hydration, and just being aware of taking rest days and trying to get the right amount of sleep, I think kind of all goes together. But I think that my diet plays the biggest role.
Yeah. I think diet is one where people really obviously feel good or like trash pretty immediately after they have a certain food. Like you had like a ton of carbs like in the middle of the day and you want to go take a nap. Like obviously it's affecting your mood.
Yeah.
Right. That's not necessarily a health thing, but it's like it's going to impact like all the systems. So I think it's a really clear correlation. However, if you also sleep 4 hours a night, you're going to feel like trash.
Sure.
So
yeah, and your diet's not going to fix that.
No.
So it doesn't matter how you eat.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say certainly there's a lot of other lifestyle factors that you probably do automatically and you don't think about just because it's like part of your value system that also supports your health. But food obviously has a very conscious role in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think my energy levels, I think for the amount of things that I get done in a day on a regular basis, I feel confident in saying that I don't know that I would have been able to do as much as I do now 4 years ago, from the time that I wake up to the time that I lay down. I've really accomplished a lot and I feel good all the time. Like I don't get that midday crash where I'm like, right after lunch, I feel like I need to take a huge nap. I don't feel that way generally after any meal. So
I do. That's sometimes a really nice feeling. Like that post-Thanksgiving. It really depends what I got to do coming up. If it's go to bed, that's a great feeling.
Right.
If it's like slam through some designs, not a great feeling.
No.
Another one from Abby. Are we more designed to eat meat and fish or more designed to eat veggies? Eat the veggies.
Eats the veggies. This one is definitely highly debatable. I feel like with all of the disease and the intolerances and just all of the unhealthy people in the world that are meat eaters, I feel like our bodies are not designed to process that stuff. It's not going well for a lot of people. Like there's the old, well, why do we have sharp teeth if we're not meant to rip into some meat? But I don't know. I just feel like there's just a lot of disease surrounding it, and it's just not the best way. I don't think that's the way we were meant to eat.
I would argue that I think things like our teeth and like the way our jaws are and things, I think they are a sign that we're omnivores.
But why would that be different for vegans?
So that doesn't mean that you have to, for example, that's why people can be carnivore or they could be vegetarian or vegan, because like we have flexibility, which I would also agree with you that there's obviously like a ton of chronic disease. There's a ton of intolerances and allergies and other stuff. But I also think that's just because like the way that we make food is like pretty messed up a lot of the time.
Oh yeah. And it's even more so now than, I think back to when my son was first born. and all these allergies were popping up, like peanut allergies and dairy allergies and just the strangest things that kids were allergic to in the classrooms. I'm like, when I was growing up, nobody was allergic to anything. It's like food has just evolved in a really terrible way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I would also argue, to your point, that I think meat has been worse in that evolution process.
For sure.
Like I said, like going to the grocery store and looking at the meat, sometimes you're like, oh, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
So if like that's how you're eating and like you're okay with that system, then you're also going to have a health impact from that. And certainly eating more plants is obviously more healthy than that.
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
All right, final question from Jack. Would you ever eat an ant for $1 billion?
Oh, now she's testing my ethics here. $1 billion.
If you say no, like, I think you're a liar.
If somebody was going to hand me $1 billion for eating an ant, I would absolutely do it.
I would force you to eat the ant.
You would be mad at me. My husband would divorce me. That's kind of a. I think she was coming at it from an ethical standpoint, but
$10,000?
No.
You wouldn't eat an ant for $10,000?
No.
$2,000 or what did I say? $10,000? $20,000.
Maybe $20,000. $10,000 just doesn't.
You wouldn't want a couple air runners?
You know what's funny is when I read her question, that's the first thing that came to mind. I would fill the gym with air runners. Buy the building and fill the gym with air runners.
Ugh.
I guess you don't know if somebody slapped down a pile of money what you would do, but an ant? I mean, it's an ant.
I would eat a bowl full of ants for significantly less than that. Live ants. Oh. Yeah, we have to keep putting them back in the bowl with my spoon. You're gonna have nightmares about this tonight. Just your Brussels sprout bowl with ants pouring out of it.
Getting really itchy all of a sudden.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Cool. Got anything that we didn't cover yet? I feel like we hammered it down pretty good.
I don't think so. I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, let us know if you got more questions and we can maybe revisit them at a future time. And where can people find you?
People can find me on the gram, Macros by Ma on Instagram.
Got the shirt on?
I have the shirt on. Lumber Capital, Stacey at lumbercapital.fit. And I think those are the best places to find me.
Cool. Yeah, you do nutrition coaching and you own Lumber Capital Athletics.
And I can help you become a vegan.
It's a great conversation, but I think it's a no.
No, not convinced.
No.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for doing this today.
Thanks. It was fun.
Thanks for listening today. If you're someone who just found the show, I would encourage you to subscribe so you can stay up to date. If you're someone who's been listening for a while and enjoying what you're hearing, I would encourage you to leave a rating or review for the show. It would definitely help us out. And lastly, if you're someone who does take your fitness seriously and cares about your performance deeply, I would encourage you to look into hiring one of our coaches. Until next time, stay the course.